Good afternoon, audience. It's a privilege to have us here and also, be partners with the Ascent Studios for this wonderful summit, wherein, we are actually trying to create a lot of impact and intervention in the creative industry in Nigeria, and by extension, of course, Africa. I'll be speaking more in terms of creative institutions. I'll be speaking more from the education perspective. Just like I was rightly introduced, I work for the Howe Foundation, and we have three interests and objectives, which is education, youth empowerment, and health. So we've been around for about 6 years, actually supporting and intervening in these three sectors. And a little over a year ago, we decided to deep dive into actually creating a sustainable pathway in terms of education for the Nigerian youth in the areas of science and technology, engineering, maths, and creative arts. So I'm just going to be giving you more like a brief of what we are doing, the model of university we're trying to put together and create, which is going to benefit, our budding youth, who we've chosen to call the fearless generation of Africa. So if you just give me about 7-10 minutes of your time, I'll go through my speech quickly, and then like she said, if you have questions, I'll entertain them at the end of the speech. Thank you. I'll start with a quote by a popular Indian guru in his time, which he made in 1966, when he was asked what he thought the future of education in the world is going to be. So we're talking about 60 years ago. And what did he say? He said, there's no teacher, no pupil, there's no leader, there's no guru, there's no master, no savior. You yourself are the teacher, the pupil, and you are the master. You are the guru, you are the leader, you are everything. And I think, in the last couple of years, this has rang through. He actually was a prophet in his time. If you consider what has happened in the last 3 years with the pandemic, you can understand where he's coming from. To give you a bit of a background, was I looking at various concepts, for instance, the creative space. I'll pick photography. For those of us who are photographers here, I'm sure you would understand what the depth of field concept means, right? We're looking at where in photography, in layman's terms, it means the distance between the nearest and the furthest objects that are in acceptably sharp focus in an image captured with a camera. Basically, photographers often would apply depth of field, or DOF as they call it, to creatively blur the background and create focus on foreground subjects. Or it can be used to make objects in the foreground stand out by blurring everything behind them. That's what Howe Foundation is going to apply. It may seem very abstract to you now, but as I explain with my speech, you would understand the concept. The Howe Foundation, through her proposed Wigwe University, that's what it's going to be called, named after the family name of our founder, Herbert Wigwe, will lead the charge in applying this concept to learning, wherein her curriculum becomes focused and straightforward, cutting through the background of traditional ways of teaching. We are going to be, developing our curriculum based on the needs, of the industry. So the currency of your time. Gone are the days where, you would have traditional ways of teaching, where it's mostly based on theories and theorems. We are going to be working and creating curriculum that would have our students actually, have a more practical-based learning. The pandemic brought a paradigm shift to how things were done pre-2020. It taught us Africans that if we did things the way we had always done, we would get the results we had always gotten. It taught us that there is no point in comparing ourselves to a system and structures that are inherently outdated. I'm speaking to what happened during the pandemic. About 80% of African schools, or even more, were shut down because nobody was prepared for such a time. For 6 months, most students didn't go to school. Of course, we have our own peculiar issues in Nigeria here, but at the time, of course, there was no ASU strike. So students didn't go to school, not because there was ASU strike, but because, we're all on lockdown. There were no facilities put in place, to pivot to online learning. This was why most African tertiary institutions, like I said, were non-functional during the lockdown. So they had lesson to realize that blended learning, online and in-person mode of teaching is the currency of education now. Most schools, in an attempt to stem the tide, quickly adjusted to online learning modes. And the effect was what? Speed over quality, because they were not prepared. So they hurriedly and rushedly, put this together. So even for a few schools who could pivot to online learning, it wasn't the same quality, the output wasn't of the same quality as compared to the in-person learning that they were previously practicing. So we talk about the shifting the paradigms. You have a new work pedagogy and blended learning that is student-centered, it's future-proof, and creates lifelong learning orientation. It's equity-focused. It leaves the specialist focus on the interesting professions that are the currency of the time. So STEM, creative arts, entrepreneurial, based, programs and courses, and integration with area and community. Then your approach and ethos. So you create a value-based system. And of course, like I said, best of both worlds. So in concluding, I would like to say that the Heart Foundation envisions a university of the future that will bring people together to create knowledge. So students and teachers are creating knowledge as opposed to the way we've always done it, which is just the teachers creating knowledge. Not just be consumers of knowledge. A university that will mold the minds of young people for a world that is yet to exist, a world that they would shape. Finally, remember, if I take you back to my beginning analogy of the depth of field concept, you now understand that the will model and the content to context model mirrors that concept. Thank you very much. What are these questions? I'm asking, how do we move from this old, static, conventional pedagogy to a modern, inspiring, dynamic, and collaborative way of teaching and learning? How do we prepare for this change as educators? How can we fulfill the demand of future employability, job readiness, and entrepreneurship for creative and technology enthusiasts? This is a question that should be on the minds of everybody. It's a general concern. It's not just a concern of the educators, it's a concern of the general public. So we all have to begin to think of how we can actually intervene in this quagmire that we found ourselves. I have an answer though from our own perspective and philosophy. What we just call the WILP model, that's WILP, which is basically, in full words is the Work Integrated Learning Program. It takes a context approach. So we're no longer about the content of the curriculum, we're about the context within which it should be delivered. Is it useful to the learner? Is it going to get the learner to the next level of his life once he leaves the institution? Those are the questions that we're asking. So this is what our proposed Big Way University model is. I'll give you an example. There are some law schools around the world that now give a VR, that virtual reality or augmented reality, glasses to their law students, and they get immersed into virtual courtrooms. So they are learning law from the practical sense, albeit not even being in the law classroom. That's an example of what we would offer to creatives. Another example is you create partnerships that can permit or allow the students opportunities to go around the world on internship and placement programs. For instance, for the tech enthusiastic students, they go to Silicon Valley and they're placed for like a year or 6 months to actually go through these practical ways of learning. We need to look to the future. Universities need to educate for a life of versatility. And that problem that the old model of education has created is the production of unemployable graduates that are not prepared for the realities of the modern and changing world. I mean, I don't speak only of Africa, I speak of, the world is a global village now. People actually sit down here and work remotely for companies across the globe. There are very few of us who have the capacity to do so because of the kind of education we've been exposed to. We are saying that, it's time for us to actually set ourselves in a tone where we're prepared and ready for these opportunities. And the problem also is that this old model is also the culprit of stifling the creativity and innovativeness of the young minds, which limits them to the lean opportunities available, rather than inspiring them to be part of the solutions for a wider net of opportunities by being innovative and entrepreneurial. Our dream and vision is to see a Nigeria of the future or an Africa of the future where graduates come out and they come out with an entrepreneurial mindset to actually create solutions as opposed to looking for jobs, and that can happen. So where do we go from here? I was supposed to ask you a few questions.